The sky above Erythra Prime did not look like anything from Earth. The stars there were sharper, brighter, and arranged in strange patterns that no human had grown up seeing. The rings of the planet glowed silver, stretching far across the horizon, like a crown. Around the massive capital city, alien ships came and went, each one stranger than the last, some shaped like wings of crystal, others like living creatures, swimming through space. Captain Ilara Vance stepped out of the human shuttle and felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes. She wore her black fleet jacket, the symbol of the Terran Defense Force, but here, in the heart of the Galactic Alliance, it felt small and plain. Her boots echoed against the polished floor as she walked toward the Grand Council Hall. Beside her was Commander Jonas Rourke, tall and broad-shouldered, his eyes always scanning for threats. On her other side walked Dr. Sierra Quinn, the quiet but brilliant science officer, carrying a small case of data tablets. The three of them were the human delegation, and they were, without question, the smallest and least noticed group in the vast hall. Inside, the Grand Council was a world in itself. Rows of seats curved upward, filled with hundreds of alien delegates. Some looked like they were carved from crystal, light glowing through their bodies. Others had scales that shimmered, like oil, or wings folded neatly behind them. A few were nothing but shifting clouds of mist, their voices like whispers in the wind. Every species was there, their attention fixed on the central speaking platform. The speaker of the council, a tall crystalline being named Vorith, raised one glowing arm. His voice rang like a chime. The Droll horde advances. 14 systems have fallen. Their fleets consume everything. Their war leaves no survivors. A heavy silence filled the air. Even the insectoid delegates stopped their clicking. Everyone knew the Droll. They were a wandering empire of destruction, stripping planets bare for resources before moving on to the next. They did not trade. They did not negotiate. They only conquered. Vorith's voice hardened. We must deploy the Alliance's strongest fleets to hold the border, but the human fleet will not be sent. Your technology is not advanced enough. Your unpredictability makes you unsuitable for coordinated defense. From their corner seat, Ilara felt the sting in every word. She could feel the way the other delegates looked at them, with pity from some, and open disdain from others. Jonas leaned toward her and muttered under his breath, "They're about to fight a war without us, and they think that's safer." Sierra didn't look away from the council floor. It's worse than that. They think we'd only make things worse. They have no idea what we're capable of. Before Ilara could answer, the floor lit up. A massive holomap appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the path of the Droll fleets, a dark wave sweeping across star systems. One of the marked systems at the border was flashing red. Ilara's breath caught. It was Virelia, was one of humanity's newest colonies, a lush world of forests and oceans, with cities still under construction. Nearly 3 million people lived there now, families, workers, scientists, farmers. It had only a small defense force, and the Droll would reach it in days. Ilara rose from her seat, her voice cutting through the murmurs. If the Alliance will not defend Virelia, then humanity will do it alone. The room erupted in whispers and sharp clicks. One of the larger delegates, a reptilian general with molten gold eyes, leaned forward and let out a slow, mocking laugh. "You cannot hold against the Droll. You will be destroyed in the first strike, and no one will remember you were even there." Ilara's gaze was steady. Her voice was calm, but her words burned like steel. "Then we'll make sure the Droll remember us before we're gone." The reptilian general tilted his head, perhaps expecting her to back down, but Ilara didn't move. Jonas and Sarah stood at her sides, silent but solid, like walls at her back. Vorith's voice rang out again. "The human delegation may do as it wishes, but the Alliance will not send aid." The session ended soon after. Delegates rose from their seats, their voices filling the hall like waves crashing. Many didn't bother to glance at the humans. A few gave them pitying nods, the kind you gave to people walking toward their own funeral. Outside the hall, the air of Erythra Prime smelled faintly metallic. Ships hummed through the sky. Alara stood on the wide steps, looking out toward the stars. Somewhere out there, Varelia was waiting. Somewhere out there, the Droll were already moving toward it. Jonas crossed his arms. 12 ships against a Droll fleet. That's the reality. Sarah closed her case of tablets with a quiet snap. Reality is just numbers, and numbers change when you know how to use them. Alara looked at them both. Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of command. We leave within the hour. Tell the crew to prepare for battle. The three of them walked toward the human shuttle. Around them, the grand towers of the alien capital rose into the silver-ringed sky. None of the other species believed that humans would return from this mission. But Alara knew something they didn't. Humanity had survived worse than this. Humanity had fought impossible odds before, not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they refused to quit. And if the Droll wanted to see what that looked like, they were about to find out. The human fleet launched within the hour. 12 ships broke free from Erythra Prime's orbit, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Compared to the massive cruisers of the other Alliance races, the Terran Defense Force vessels looked small and plain. Their armor was scratched from old battles. Their weapons were older designs, updated only with whatever tech the humans could copy or afford. Captain Alara Vance stood on the bridge of the TDF Resolute, her hands resting on the command rail as the stars stretched into long lines. Jump space swallowed them, a tunnel of pale blue light that seemed to go on forever. The crew worked in silence, the tension in the air as heavy as armor. Communications officers monitored incoming signals. Engineers kept a close watch on the ship's power core, and navigators plotted the shortest route to Ver. Everyone knew the risk. They had all seen the Droll's record. No one had ever stopped them once they began their advance. Commander, Jonas Rourke stepped up beside Alara. His voice was low. I've gone through the Droll fleet specs again. They outnumber us nearly 10 to 1. Alara didn't take her eyes off the view ahead. Then we'll just have to make every ship count 10 times over. In the strategy bay, Dr. Sierra Quinn was surrounded by glowing projections. She had been there since they left orbit, digging through every scrap of data the Alliance had on past battles with the Droll. Lines of numbers floated in the air: ship speed, firing rates, shield strengths. Lieutenant Haroun, one of the younger officers, watched her work, looking for a miracle. Doctor. Sierra didn't answer right away. She tapped at a projection, adjusting the simulation. Then she spoke without looking up. Not a miracle, a pattern. She ran another test. The holographic battle began. The Droll ships, dark and sleek, moved in perfect formations. Against most fleets, their attack lines tore through like blades through paper. But when she swapped the defending fleet with human ships, something strange happened. The humans still lost, but not as quickly. Some ships survived longer than expected. Some even managed to break through the Droll's front lines before going down. Haroun frowned. How? Our tech's weaker. Our shields are thinner. Shouldn't we get wiped out faster? Ciro zoomed in on the battle movements. We don't fight the way other species do. The Alliance teaches coordinated maneuvers, strict patterns, pre-approved responses to every scenario. But humans, she tapped the screen, and the simulated human fleet scattered in unexpected directions. Humans improvise. We change tactics mid-battle. We take risks no one else would take. Jonas walked in, having overheard the last part. You're saying we survive because we're unpredictable. Sarah finally looked up, her eyes sharp. Exactly. Every other fleet fights like a game of chess. We fight like a street brawl. The Droll are prepared for chess. They're not prepared for us. Alara entered then, listening quietly for a moment. before speaking. How do we turn that into an advantage? Sierra adjusted the simulation again. If we don't stick to patterns, their targeting AI will keep making mistakes. They'll try to predict our movements and fail. Every wrong prediction gives us a chance to hit them where they're weakest. Jonas gave a thin smile. Then, let's give them the messiest fight in the history of the galaxy. Elara's voice was calm, but the fire in it reached every ear in the room. From now on, no formation lasts more than 30 seconds. Every captain will have full authority to break ranks if they see an opening. We use decoys, false retreats, anything that forces the Drawl to guess. The message spread quickly through the fleet. At first, some of the younger officers looked uncertain. Every bit of their training had been about order and discipline. But the veterans understood. Humans had always survived by bending the rules when the rules didn't fit. Hours later, the ships dropped out of jump space near the Varelia system. The blue-green planet hung in the distance, beautiful and vulnerable. Civilian transports were already fleeing toward the far side of the system. The Drawl fleet was still a few hours away, but their approach was like a shadow creeping across the edge of the sensors. Elara stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on that shadow. Space was silent, but the air on the Resolute felt charged like a storm. The human fleet scattered across the dark void, their ships darting in unpredictable arcs. The Drawl formation moved like a wall, smooth, perfect, deadly. Captain Elara. Vance stood tall on the bridge. Her eyes never left the tactical display. They'll expect us to regroup, she said. We won't. The Drawl opened fire first. Thin beams of red light cut through space, spearing toward the nearest human ships. 2 destroyers twisted aside just in time, the shots burning empty space. Instead of returning fire immediately, those ships turned sharply and dove behind a small asteroid cluster, vanishing from enemy sensors. Commander Jonas Rourke grinned faintly. They're already guessing. Elara gave the next order. Harrier Squadron, engage their flank. Don't stay in one line for more than 10 seconds. From the hangars of 3 human ships, small fighter craft burst forward like arrows. Instead of flying straight at the Drawl, the pilots split into chaotic patterns, zigzagging, looping, even reversing direction, for no clear reason. On the Drawl flagship, Tactical A is calculated attack paths, and failed. Shots went wide. Predictive algorithms returned errors. The humans were moving in ways that didn't make sense to machines trained on centuries of orderly wars. One human fighter came in low under a Drawl cruiser, releasing a spread of micromissiles. The blasts rippled across the enemy's lower hull, forcing them to pull back. Another fighter pretended to retreat, luring 2 enemy interceptors into the path of hidden mines in the Resolute's strategy bay. Dr. Sierra Quinn tracked every move. Her voice was calm but urgent over the comms. Keep breaking your own patterns. If you've made a move once, don't make it again. Let them waste their shots chasing shadows. The battle became chaos. Drawl ships tried to tighten formation, but each time they did, human ships darted in and fired at weak points before scattering again. It was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands, but the cost was real. A human frigate, the TDF Pioneer, took a direct hit. Its shields flared and collapsed. Fire bloomed along its side, and a moment later, the hull cracked apart. The loss hit the comm channels like a blow to the chest. For a heartbeat, the fleet's momentum wavered. Ilara's voice cut through, steady and sharp. We honor them by making sure the Drawl don't take another inch without bleeding for it. Keep moving. The human ships surged back into the fight, anger sharpening their aim. Jonas leaned over the comm console. Harrier Squadron, switch to bait tactics. Make them chase you. Lead them toward the asteroid field. The asteroid field ahead was dense and unstable, its rocks spinning slowly under the pull of a nearby gas giant. The Drawl avoided such areas their formations required. open space to maneuver. But the humans dove straight in, weaving between jagged stones and spinning debris. Tadral cruisers followed. Inside, their targeting systems struggled to track the humans through the clutter. One cruiser's shields flared as an asteroid slammed into it, forced into its path by a human ship's engine blast. From the Resolute, Sarah watched the formation thin as more of them broke off to chase targets. "They're splitting up," she said, her voice tight. "If we hit them in pieces, we can do real damage." Ilara didn't hesitate. Signaled the fleet, isolate, and destroy. The humans struck like wolves breaking a herd. In small, fast-moving groups, they swarmed lone Drawl ships, firing from unexpected angles, vanishing before the enemy could counter. One destroyer was caught between 3 human corvettes and torn apart in a flurry of explosions. The tide of the battle began to shift. For the first time in living memory, a Drawl fleet was losing ships without wiping out its enemy first. But victory wasn't certain. More Drawl reinforcements were on the way, their dark shapes flickering on the long-range sensors. The humans had bought time, not safety. On the bridge, Jonas wiped sweat from his brow. "We can't keep this up forever." Ilara's gaze stayed locked on the battle. "We don't need forever. We just need long enough for Varelia's civilians to evacuate." Syrah's voice came through the more urgent now. "I think I've found something in their movements. The Drawl adapt slowly. If we force them to relearn our patterns every few minutes, they never catch up. But if we push too hard in one direction, they'll start predicting us again." Ilara nodded. "Then we change the game every 5 minutes. Send the order." The battle turned into a shifting storm. Humans attacked, retreated, regrouped, then broke apart again. Every phase looked different from the last. To the Drawl, it was like fighting a dozen different fleets at once. In the middle of it all, a human frigate rammed an enemy cruiser head-on, disabling its engines before breaking apart. The crew escaped in pods, but the explosion lit the dark, like a miniature sun. Jonas stared at the display. "They'll remember that one." Ilara's voice was quiet, almost to herself. "Good. Let them remember." Hours later, the first wave of the Drawl fleet was in retreat, their losses heavier than any they'd taken in decades. But more were coming, and the humans were running low on fuel and ammunition. Still, for the first time since the war began, the Drawl advance wasn't unstoppable. The humans had put a crack in the wall. As the battered fleet regrouped, Ilara stood at the viewport, watching the stars. "They thought we weren't special," she murmured. "But now, they know better." The battlefield was littered with wreckage. Shattered hulls drifted slowly, spinning in the darkness. Fires burned in the cold of space, trapped behind shattered plating until oxygen ran out. The human fleet floated among the debris, their engines low, their hulls scarred. The TDF Resolute had a deep burn along its port side where a Drawl beam had sliced too close. Inside, repair crews worked without rest, sparks lighting the narrow corridors. On the bridge, Captain Ilara Vance studied the tactical display. The first Drawl wave had been pushed back, but it wasn't a victory. Not yet. Commander Jonas Rourke stepped beside her, his face grim. "Long-range scans confirm it. The second wave is twice the size of the first, and faster." Dr. Sir Quinn's voice came over the from the strategy bay. "They've adjusted their formation. Our unpredictability won't catch them off guard the same way this time." Ilara's jaw tightened. "Then we'll have to be even less predictable." Outside the viewport, the planet Varelia glowed blue and green, its oceans and forests untouched. For now, civilian transports continued to lift off from the surface, their engines flaring as they escaped into deep space. The evacuation was still underway, but time was running out. Jonas tapped the display. "We've got maybe 2 hours before the second wave is in weapons range." Ilara nodded slowly. "We need to make those 2 hours count." In the hangar, Pilots rested against their fighters, their faces pale and drawn. Some stared at the deck, lost in thought. Others spoke quietly, voices low, as if afraid to break the fragile calm. They had already lost friends in the first wave. Everyone knew more would be lost in the second. Sero entered the hangar, holding a tablet full of battle data. She gathered the squadron leaders. The Drow think we'll hit them head-on again. We won't. We'll make them chase ghosts. She showed them a projection, hundreds of false signals scattered across the system. We'll use decoy beacons to mimic fleet signatures. They'll waste time splitting their forces to hunt what isn't there. Every second they chase shadows is another second for Varelia's people to escape. The pilots exchanged glances. One of them, a young lieutenant named Kara, raised her voice. What about us? What happens when they realize the real fleet is smaller? Sero didn't sugarcoat it. Then we fight, and we keep fighting until there's nothing left to protect. Kara swallowed hard, but nodded. Understood. Back on the bridge, Jonas was setting the final coordinates for the decoys. Small, unmanned drones, each carrying a beacon that would mimic the signal of a full-size warship, were loaded into launch tubes. The second draw wave appeared on the outer edge of the sensor's black, sharp-edged ships moving in perfect lines. Their formation looked like the blades of a great machine grinding forward. Ilara gave the order. Launch the decoys. One by one, the drones shot into the void, scattering in every direction. On the draw sensors, it must have looked like dozens of human ships fanning out. The enemy reacted immediately. Several draw groups broke formation to pursue the false signals. It worked for now, but as the main body of the draw fleet drew closer, the tension inside the Resolute deepened. Everyone knew the moment was coming when the enemy would realize the truth. When the first draw shots flashed across space, the humans were ready. They didn't form a defensive wall. Instead, they split again into smaller groups, weaving between asteroids, debris, and even the wrecks of their own fallen ships. The battle began anew. This time, the Droll were faster to adapt. Their fire became more accurate. 2 human corvettes went down in the first 15 minutes. The losses hurt, but the fleet pressed on. Jonas barked orders into the comm. Squadron Delta, swing around their rear, hit their engines, and run. Don't try to finish them. Ilara kept her voice level, though her heart pounded. Every hit slows them down. Keep them chasing us. The asteroid field became a shield and a weapon. Human ships darted between the rocks, forcing the Droll to slow down or risk collisions. Mines were hidden among the drifting stones, detonating as enemy ships passed too close. Still, the Droll kept coming. Their numbers were overwhelming. The explosions had faded, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the battle itself. The asteroid field was now a graveyard of shattered rock and burning wreckage. Chunks of Droll warships drifted among the debris, glowing red where their hulls had been torn apart. The trap had worked, mostly. From the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Ilara Vance watched the tactical display. The Droll fleet was no longer a wall of blades. Nearly a third of their ships had been destroyed or disabled. The rest had scattered, their perfect formation gone. Commander Jonas Rourke stood beside her, leaning heavily on the railing. We hit them harder than they've been hit in years. Ilara didn't smile. Her eyes stayed on the display, and we paid for it. The human fleet was bleeding. 3 more ships were gone, their names already burned into the memory of every survivor. The TDF Horizon, the Valar, and the Kestrel, all lost during the retreat into the asteroid field. The comms were filled with partial distress calls, static, and the occasional voice calling for friends who would never answer. In the medical bay, wounded crew lay in rows of narrow beds. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint temps of burned metal. Doctors and nurses moved quickly, their voices low but urgent. Some patients stared at the ceiling in silence. Others gritted their teeth through the pain. Dr. Sierra Quinn stood at the far end of the bay, holding a small tablet filled with sensor readings. She had been analyzing the battle data non-stop since the detonations. When Jonas entered, she looked up. "There's something strange about their ships." Jonas frowned. "What do you mean?" Sierra turned the tablet toward him. "During the chaos, I caught a few seconds of their internal comm signals. They weren't just giving commands. Some of it was off. Almost like they were reacting to something emotional. Not fear exactly, but hesitation." Jonas shook his head. "The Drow don't hesitate. Not in any battle record I've ever seen." Sierra's voice dropped. "That's what I'm saying. Something about the way we fought, the unpredictability, the trap, it rattled them. They're not just machines of war. They can be thrown off balance." Jonas stared at her for a moment before speaking. "If that's true, we can use it." Back on the bridge, Ilara received the casualty list. Her stomach tightened as she read each name. She had trained with some of them, laughed with them in mess halls, trusted them in the heat of battle. And now, they were gone. But she didn't have time to grieve. Not yet. A sensor officer spoke up. "Captain, incoming transmissions from Varelia. The last civilian transport has left orbit. The planet is officially evacuated." A ripple of relief passed through the bridge crew. That had been the mission, to buy time, and against all odds, they had done it. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment. The faces of the lost flashed in her mind, but so did the millions of people, now safe because of them. When she opened her eyes, they were hard again. Then we're not done. If we can push the draw back now, we can make them think twice before coming here again. Jonas leaned in. "We don't have the numbers for a counterattack." Ilara's voice was quiet, but certain. "No, but we have something better, doubt. We've shown them we can't be predicted. Now we make that fear grow." Sierra arrived on the bridge then, walking straight to the captain. "If we change tactics again, mid-battle, they won't be able to reset fast enough. We hit hard, disappear, then hit somewhere they don't expect. Keep them chasing us, always in the wrong direction." Ilara nodded slowly. The plan was risky, too risky for most species in the Alliance, but that was exactly why it might work. In the hours that followed, the human fleet played a deadly game of misdirection. Small strike teams would appear suddenly on the edge of the Droll's sensors, fire a barrage, and vanish into jump space before the enemy could close in. Other ships feigned being crippled, only to spring ambushes when the Droll came in for the kill. Each attack was different. Each escape route made no sense to a machine's logic. The Droll response times grew slower. Their formations grew looser, and then something happened that no one expected. During one of the hit-and-run strikes, a human boarding team managed to breach a damaged Droll frigate. The fight inside was short and brutal, but when the humans reached the control center, they found something shocking. The Droll captain wasn't armored like a warrior. Instead, it was surrounded by what looked like carved symbols and glowing orbs, almost like a shrine. The boarding leader, Lieutenant Kara, reported overcomes. "Captain, I don't think the Droll fight just for resources. I think they fight for something they believe in." Ilara listened in silence. If the Droll had beliefs, if they could be shaken at that level, then humanity had a weapon more powerful than any missile. As the humans pulled back into deep space, leaving the damaged Droll fleet behind, the stars ahead seemed a little brighter. They had survived again. More importantly, they had learned something no one in the Alliance had ever suspected. The Droll were not unstoppable. The Droll could doubt, and once doubt took root, it could grow. The Resolute hung in the shadow of a fractured moon, its engines silent. Around it, the rest of the human fleet hid among the broken rock. The debris field masked their signatures, making them ghosts in the void. On the bridge, the lights were dim. Only the soft glow of the holographic star map lit the faces of the crew. Captain Ilara Vance stood at the center, staring at the map as if she could see the whole war through it. Jonas Rourke entered quietly, a steaming mug of coffee in his hands, still awake. She didn't look up. I keep thinking about what Kara saw on that Drawl frigate, that shrine, the symbols. Jonas set the mug down beside her. You think it means something? Ilara's eyes were hard. Everything means something to a soldier. You don't carry something into battle unless it matters. If we can figure out what it means, we can use it. Dr. Sierra Quinn was already working on that. In the science lab, she had the images from the boarding team projected on every wall. The strange symbols glowed in shifting colors, like starlight through water. She compared them to every alien language in the Alliance archives, but the closest match was human. Not in words, but in concept. The Drawl symbols weren't writing. They were stories, pieces of history passed in patterns and light, meant to be remembered without speaking. When Sierra told Ilara, the captain leaned forward. If they carry stories into battle, then they can lose faith in them. And if they lose faith, Jonas finished her thought, they stop fighting. The plan they formed was dangerous, maybe even suicidal. But the fleet had no choice. The Alliance was scattered, too slow to respond. The Drawl would regroup within days unless something broke them now. Ilara called the senior officers to the war room. The holographic table in the center displayed the Drawl fleet's last known positions. We're going to strike their heart. Not with weapons, not first. With fear. We'll make them believe we've uncovered their deepest secret. We'll make them think their history is turning against them. Some officers shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned in with grim smiles. Lieutenant Kara spoke first. How do we hit them without firing a shot? Zero answered. We hijack their own communication networks. When they call for orders, they'll get something else. We'll send them the images from that shrine, mixed with human battle footage, as if the past is warning them about us. Jonas chuckled, though there was no humor in it. We're going to haunt them. The fleet moved out under the cover of the fractured moon. Each ship followed a different course, breaking formation to reduce detection. The operation was split into 3 parts. One team would slip into the edge of the Drawl's territory to tap into their comm relays. Another would stage distractions along the border, and the main force would wait for the Drawl to fracture. The infiltration team's journey was silent and tense. Kara led them aboard a stealth corvette, weaving through sensor shadows and asteroid belts. Once they reached the comm relay, they used a mix of Alliance tech and old human improvisation, duct tape, soldered circuits, and a stolen Drawl power cell. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. When the first transmission went out, the Drawl didn't notice at first. But soon, their fleet channels were filled with flickering images, glowing symbols from the shrine, twisted into shapes that merged with human war banners, the faces of human soldiers staring back through the static, and over it all, a voice calm, unshaken, reading a message in perfect Drawl. We know your stories. We have walked your sacred halls. Your ancestors feared us, and they were right. In the Drawl command ships, confusion spread. Some captains demanded answers from their leaders. Others hesitated before giving attack orders, glancing at the flickering images on their screens, while the Drawl tried to make sense of the transmissions. The distraction teams struck. They hit supply convoys, fuel depots, and repair docks, always vanishing before the main Drawl forces arrived. The Drawl response became chaotic, each commander chasing shadows instead of working together. On the Resolute, Ilara watched the battle map shift in their favor, but she knew it wouldn't last. The Drawl would realize soon that it was all a trick. Jonas stood beside her, arms crossed. We've got maybe 12 hours before they adapt. What's the final move? Ilara's voice was steady. We take out their command ship. While they're scattered and second-guessing, we hit the head of the Serpent. The human fleet converged on the Drawl flagship, a massive spear-shaped vessel surround. The stars outside the Resolute seemed calmer now, but Captain Ilara Vance knew better. Victory in battle never meant the war was over. It only meant the next fight was coming. 3 days after the destruction of the Drawl flagship, a strange signal reached the human fleet. It was not a threat. It was an invitation. The message came in perfect Alliance standard. To the leaders of the human fleet, we request dialogue. Send your captain. No weapons. We come in peace. Many on the bridge didn't believe it. Jonas Rourke was the first to speak. This is bait. They're angry. They're humiliated. They'll want revenge. Dr. Sierra Quinn studied the transmission, replaying it frame by frame. The voice was steady, almost too steady, like it had been practiced many times. It could be real, she said, though her eyes showed doubt. Or it could be the first step of a trap. Still, the message could not be ignored. The Alliance Council had already heard of humanity's victory. If humans refused a chance for peace, the other species might see them as warmongers. In the war room, Ilara gathered her officers. The holographic table showed the meeting location, a neutral moon in the outer reach, unclaimed by any side. The surface was barren, covered in silver dust and sharp ridges of rock. We go, Ilara said finally, her voice calm but firm. But we go prepared. If this is a trap, we make sure they regret it. Jonas smirked. That's the Ilara, I know. The Resolute approached the moon, under escort from 2 smaller ships. As they neared the surface, they saw the Drawl vessel waiting, sleek, black, and motionless. No weapons powered. No escort. Kara led the landing party, wearing light armor beneath her diplomatic uniform. Ilara, Sierra, and Jonas followed. The ramp of the Resolute lowered with a hiss of steam, and the silver dust crunched under their boots as they stepped onto the moon. From the Drawl ship, a single figure emerged. He was tall and thin, his skin like dark stone, his eyes glowing, faintly blue. He wore no visible armor, only a long robe patterned with the same symbols from the shrine. He stopped a few steps away and inclined his head. I am Vale, envoy of the Drawl Ascendancy. You have surprised us, humans. Ilara met his gaze without flinching. Surprise was necessary. You left us no choice. Vale's thin lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Perhaps. But now, there may be another path. They walked together toward a cluster of stone pillars at the center of the landing site. The moon's low gravity made each step feel slow, like moving through water. The air was thin, but breathable. Vale spoke of ending the war. He spoke of trade, shared technology, and the possibility of the Drawl joining the Alliance. His words were smooth, polished, but there was something in his eyes, something cold. Sierra noticed it first. As Vale spoke, his gaze flicked upward, every few moments, as if checking something in the sky. Jonas saw it too. Captain, he said quietly through the inner ear, there's movement above us. Fast. Ilara didn't look up. She kept her eyes on Vale, her voice steady. What kind of movement? Dropships, Jonas replied. At least 6. It hit her instantly. This was not peace. This was a snare. She took one slow step back, her hand brushing the communicator at her belt. Fleet, this is Vance. Prepare for extraction, and get the point defense online now. Vale's voice sharpened. Leaving so soon, Captain. Above, the sky lit up as Drawl dropships broke through the thin clouds, descending in a wide circle. Kara's hand went to her weapon, but Ilara shook her head sharply. Not until they fire first. The dropships landed around them, kicking up silver dust in blinding clouds. Dozens of Drawl soldiers poured out, their armor black and segmented, their weapons like jagged spears that hummed with energy. Vale stepped back, his faint smile returning. You have spirit, Captain. But spirit alone cannot win every battle. Ilara's voice was cold as the moon's surface. No, but it can make losing very expensive. The first shot came from the Drawl side, a spear of blue light that shattered a rock near Kara's feet. In an instant, the humans returned fire. The silver dust turned into a storm as weapons discharged in all directions. Jonas tackled Ilara behind one of the stone pillars, firing bursts toward the nearest Drawl squad. Sira pulled out a compact emitter, projecting a shimmering barrier that deflected incoming bolts. The cum in Ilara's ear crackled. Resolute to landing party, hold position, we're bringing the big guns. The ground shook as the human fleet's orbital cannons fired, streaks of light punching through the thin atmosphere. One of the Drawl dropships exploded in midair, scattering debris like burning snow. Vale's comm mask finally cracked. He barked an order in his own language, and the Drawl soldiers began to pull back toward their ship. Ilara stood, her weapon trained on the end. This was your peace offer. A trap. Vale's blue eyes narrowed. You're dangerous, human. Too dangerous to let live. Then you should have killed me when you had the chance. Before he could reply, another orbital strike tore through the ground between them, forcing him to retreat. In moments, the Drawl ship lifted off, vanishing into the darkness. Back aboard the Resolute, the crew was silent. They had survived, but the message was clear. The Drawl would not forgive this. They had tried to break humanity's spirit, and failed. Ilara stood on the bridge, watching the silver moon fade into the distance. Her voice was quiet but certain. They thought they could trap us. They still think they understand us. But they've learned nothing. Jonas looked at her. And what have we learned? She didn't answer right away. Then she turned, her eyes hard. That they're afraid, and fear can be used. Asterisk, the Resolute drifted in the quiet between stars, but every soul aboard felt the tension. The failed Drawl trap had changed everything. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to end the war. Captain Ilara Vance stood at the center of the bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic map. Red points marked Drawl fleets moving through Alliance space. They were spreading fast, taking worlds, enslaving colonies. If we keep chasing them ship by ship, we'll lose. Jonas Rourke said we need to cut the head off the snake. Dr. Sira Quinn leaned closer to the map, her fingers tracing the shifting red lines. Their head isn't a ship. It's their core world, Virel Prime. It's where their war council sits, but it's deep in their territory. Kara's voice was sharp. We can't just fly in and shoot it. Their defenses are insane. Even the Alliance hasn't dared. Ilara didn't look away from the map. Then we do what humans do best. We make them look the wrong way, while we strike where they never expect. The plan was born there on the bridge, spoken in low voices and measured words. They would send a decoy fleet toward a heavily guarded Drawl outpost, making it seem like humanity's last gamble, while the Drawl gathered to crush it. A smaller strike team would slip through hidden routes toward Virel Prime. The risk was beyond anything they had attempted. If caught, they wouldn't just die. Their species' hope would die with them. 2 days later, the stars burned with war. The decoy fleet, commanded by Admiral Reyes, smashed into the Drawl outpost with every weapon firing. The Drawl responded, exactly as expected, pulling ships from across their borders to crush the attack. While the battle raged, the Resolute and Force stealth escorts moved, like shadows through forgotten asteroid fields and debris clouds. Every moment was tense, even with stealth systems active. The Droll's deep-range sensors could pick them up if they got too close. Jonas sat at weapons, his hands ready, but still. Feels like walking into a lion's mouth, he muttered. Karra checked her rifle. One last time. Let's hope this lion chokes. When Virel Prime finally appeared ahead, it was like a living fortress. A massive green and gold world, ringed by defense stations and patrolled by fleets. The Drawl homeworld was a jewel, wrapped in blades. Sira worked the nav console, her voice steady. There, between the twin moons, a blind spot in their sensor net, We have one chance. The Resolute slipped into the gap, coasting silently. From this close, the planet's surface came into view. Vast black cities, glowing rivers of molten energy, and towers that scraped the clouds. Their target was not the palace. It was the war nexus, a single, towering structure at the center of the capital. From there, the Drawl coordinated their fleets. If it fell, the war machine would be blind. The landing was fast and brutal. The strike team hit the ground running, their boots pounding across the obsidian streets. Drawl soldiers appeared instantly, their weapons flashing blue. But the humans moved with precision. Kara led the charge, cutting a path through enemy fire. Jonas covered the rear, his rifle barking in short, deadly bursts. Sira stayed close. Too, Ilara, carrying the device they had built in secret, a compact disruption bomb tuned to Drawl communications. They fought through the outer gates, climbed the burning stairs, and finally reached the Nexus chamber. The room was a cathedral of alien steel, glowing with streams of data running through transparent conduits. Vale was waiting. The envoy's robe was gone. He wore dark armor now, his eyes burning brighter than before. I told you, Captain, too dangerous to let live. Ilara raised her rifle, but Vale moved like a shadow, disarming her with a single strike. Jonas lunged, trading blows with the Draw leader, but Vale's strength was unnatural. He hurled Jonas aside like a rag doll. Kara roared and swung her rifle as a club, forcing Vale back a step. Sira now. Sira ran for the central console, the device in her hands. Vale saw her and moved to